So let's try this again. Third time is the charm. That's how it's got to work, right? So welcome to day 12 of Project 41. This is a birthday fundraiser that I've been running for 4 incredible sanctuaries. For them, the Cows Come Home, the Big Island Sanctuary, and of course, Love Always. Tonight we are trying to have Randie Gentry join us from Cows Come Home Sanctuary, but we're having a little technical difficulties. So I'm going to try to bring Randie in and see if this works this time. Go live. So Randie, you should have received a request from me now. We'll try it this way. Hey, there we go.
Hey!
Hey, you're sideways, but you're here. There we go. How about that?
Hey, finally.
Well, I hope the rest of this conversation goes better than the first part of this. Sometimes technology just doesn't want to play nice, and that's how it is. So,
It actually doesn't.
well, we'll get through it. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate you wanting to come on and share your story and to share a little bit about what you guys are doing at Cows Come Home. And, I just blown away by all that you've done and all that you do. So I thought, what a great way to have you share your story as to hear it come directly from you. So you've shared with me that, you came from California, which was not a good place when you were in California. Would you share a little bit about what your life was before you moved to Tennessee?
Yes, actually, I'm from California, so California is home to me. But unfortunately, when I moved back there, after I left when I was a couple years old and moved to Kentucky, where my parents' families are. And I met a man, and he wanted to move to Los Angeles. Imagine that. So off I went. And little did I know he was a serial domestic violence. I had no idea. But there I was, and like so many, you're charmed, and they say everything you need to hear, and oh my gosh, they love animals, and all the same things that I wanted to hear. So off I went, and too late discovered that I was in a situation that I really didn't need to be in, and I was in it for 16 years.
Wow.
And about 10 years into it, I got my first potbelly pig and a dog, and we had moved to a farm area where we were going to rescue burros and mustangs from Bureau of Land Management because they had the auctions nearby.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this was just like a dream come true. This was everything. And he promised he wouldn't do this anymore and he wouldn't hurt me anymore. So off I went. And little did I know, I was being isolated, and my 10 acres became not a sanctuary, but a compound and a prison. And, there was no big shiny rainbow. It was terrifying. So, the abuse got worse and worse and worse, and it was starting to affect the animals. And I finally was able to do for them what I could not do for myself, which was get up and leave, because he wasn't abusive to them. He was abusive to me, and it terrified them. You could see in their eyes, they were terrified. And, I couldn't do it for myself, but I had to do it for them because it was killing them. And I was going to die. So that wouldn't have done them any good.
That wouldn't have done anybody any good. And, it's, personally, I've never been in that situation. So I can't imagine being afraid daily. I can't imagine living that life. And then for you to have the courage to say, you know what, I'm taking my animals and I'm going across country where they can't hurt me. At what point did you know where you had to go to?
Well, when I finally escaped, I had called my best friend since I was 9 years old. and she was in Irvine, about 80 miles away. And she and her family took us in, and I said, I can't leave without them. So
Sure.
I will stay if we can't, if I can't take them with me. So she and her family opened their doors to me, and I stayed there for 4 months. I would probably still be living in their house, and they would be fine with it, and I'd be fine with it. But because of threats and repeatedly putting them in danger and not being able to afford to live there on my own, my sister lived in Sevierville, Tennessee, in East Tennessee. So I moved here for safety's sake, and where I would be able to afford a home and be able to take care of my animals. So that's how I wound up here.
So you drove across country with a pig and a dog. What kind of trip was that like?
Well, it was, my brother and brother-in-law came to get me, and as luck would have it, one of the RV companies, a big RV company in the United States, was having an Eastward Ho promotion. So all I had to pay for was gas and insurance, which was great because he left me with nothing. We had a $500,000 home. We had vehicles. He had a great job. I wasn't allowed to work. And he left me with nothing. But I had my life, and I had my animals, and we got in this rented RV and drove across the country. I rode across the country because I just couldn't drive. I was so incredibly upset, and I hated to leave home, and I hated to admit defeat, but I had to move for safety's sake and put some miles between us.
Yeah.
So
for you, what was it that was so special that made this connection with your pig? And if I remember correctly, his name's Toby, right?
the first pig I left with was Tusock, and he was a really early pig from 2000 is when. No, it wasn't 2000. It was 1990 when I got him.
Okay.
It was an early pig. So I had him and a Scotty dog and a terrarium full of tree frogs at the time. So they were in the shower of the RV, and the pig and I laid on the floor most of the way, and the little Scotty just rode all over the place. The pig, my first pig, people didn't really know a whole lot about them, so we really didn't know how to care for them. We didn't know where to go for vet care, or how long they lived, or really what to feed them, or how much to feed them. So, off I went with this guy. He had been overweight. He developed arthritis. So I really didn't know how to care for him or how I was going to care for him. But the important thing was to get him out of there. And it changed his life because my animals were getting sick. I was sick, and I was, by then my immune system had just crashed, and they were crashing. So, the night I left with them, everything changed. Like it did for me. I healed. Everything that was wrong with me seemed to heal, and everything that was wrong with them seemed to heal. And we started over.
Sometimes restarting is one of the best things you can do. I know it's difficult, and I know people seem like they feel like they failed at something, but sometimes that's your only option. So bravo to you for being strong enough to be able to rescue your animals from that situation, because you knew that it wasn't going to end well for yourself, which ultimately would not end well for them. So then you find yourself living in Tennessee with your sister. How does the next step in your life start before you get to the point where your cows come home?
I think I might be losing my light here. That might be better. I was living in Jefferson City, the one town away, and my sister was living in Sevierville. So I was on my own. I didn't want to really be a big burden on them, or be in their lives, their daily lives. So I had recently started a real job, and I lost my first pig in 2002. And I just couldn't get used to not hearing the hoof prints and the hoof steps and the having to go pick him up off the floor because he couldn't get up, and just everything that comes with a pig chattering and talking all the time, and even caring for him. He was special needs by the time he passed away, and
Sure.
it's really difficult. It left a big hole in my life. So I wound up getting another one, and I didn't know about sanctuaries at the time. I don't know if there were any around there, but I wound up going to what everyone refers to as a greeter, and paid $50 for this little pig who was destined to be, if people didn't buy him and the rest of his litter, what they called a janitor, who would walk the grounds and eat cigarette butts and chewing gum wrappers and garbage and straws and whatever else. So this little pig came home with me, and still struggling as a single girl, trying to get it together after being completely wiped out and devastated. And my credit card was defrauded one day and wiped my bank account out like I didn't have enough to worry about. And I went to the bank, and they told me that I needed to make sure that I go back and call the electric company because my account was going to bounce. Everything else was taken care of but that. So I went back to my office. I didn't do it. I went home, and my lights were out. So the pig and I are sitting on the deck at my house and just going, we need to go back home. We need to go to California. This is it. I don't know why in the world I'm here. And finally got the electric company to come out. Someone stopped by and gave me cash. A good friend stopped by and gave me cash. And waiting for the electric company to come out, and who should get out of this truck but a big old country boy. And working overtime for the first time in forever. He'd taken that week of overtime where he usually turned it down. And I was out there trying to tell him that I wasn't a deadbeat and I don't give bad checks and all these other things. And he's like, yeah, lady, whatever, stop in the office and we'll try to fix you up and maybe you'll get some money back. And right about the time he was getting ready to leave, my little rabbit ran over, and this all business guy, farm boy, was like, well, looky there, that little old bunny rabbit.
That is a great impression of Rick.
Yeah. And I thought, well, wait till he gets a load of this. So I called Toby over there, and Toby came over, and he and Rick fell in love.
That's awesome.
He and Rick just totally fell in love. And 2 years later, Rick and I got married, and Rick happened to own a cattle farm. And I'm not a beef eater or a pork eater. I hadn't yet gone vegan, and I hadn't gone totally vegetarian at that point.
Sure.
But the last thing I wanted anything to do with was living on a cattle farm where animals were going to be, he took good care of them. He really cared for them. But, that you care for them and give them a great life until you don't, until it's time to take them to market and ultimately be slaughtered.
Until you betray their trust, because, you've seen personally the bond that some of these cows have with yourself and with Rick and with people all across the country. And then everyone's like, oh, these farmers love their animals, and they do. I know, some of my friends will argue with me. They do, but ultimately they betray that trust and that love by sending them to slaughter.
They do.
And, the way I was raised, I was raised to believe that's what animals were here for. And thankfully, because my wife led us in a different path, I don't believe that anymore. And, now I'm using my voice to stand up for animals every chance I get, which is kind of how you and I have become close, because I appreciate what you guys are doing. So you're now at this point, you're in Tennessee. You're married to a cattle rancher. You're living in one of the places that today, it would make your stomach turn thinking about it. Yeah. So what was it that changed that for you guys to kind of turn things around?
Well, almost immediately, like my first night that I spent there, I could hear a mama cow crying outside, and I asked him, what's the deal? What's going on? And he explained to me that he'd put babies in the barn that day. and that they'd be going to market. And I really had to face it. At that point, I had to face what I was really dealing with. So it was one of those things where you can't do anything about it. You're newly married, you love this guy. You don't want to, this is what they know. This is their family farm. But, it was like constant nagging. It was the Jiminy Cricket, I'm going to be your conscience, instead of just hanging back and not doing anything about it. So come to find out that he was actually very, he really loved him. He really struggled with it. His dad was a hardcore farmer. They're a commodity. They're here for our youth and for money, and don't get attached. And that's just how it was, except Rick really struggled with it. And, he told me not too long ago that after he would drop him off, because he would take care of checking him in and signing up and whatever you do when you go to market. And he said that, a lot of times he'd go back to the truck with tears in his eyes and try to get over it before his dad would see him, because it just was not acceptable behavior. So
I think that's what's tough, because, right now at a young age, if you take a 4-year-old, if you give him a bunny and an apple, at 4 years old, they know what you should and shouldn't be eating. That compassion is a part of us, but it's parents, it's society, it's, the ever-moving cog that is grinding that compassion out of people, teaching them, no, only certain animals are supposed to be loved. And other animals are supposed to be eaten. And, I used to subscribe to that. I used to tell people I loved animals, but I was a hunter. I used to tell people that I loved animals, but yet every meal I had was either, there was animal byproduct of some nature on my plate for probably every daggone meal. So I appreciate that Rick shared that with you, that at some point, he kept fighting that urge, that natural urge of how he felt and the way he was raised and the way his dad tried to, teach him that wasn't acceptable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really a struggle. And then I also had to, in California, I wasn't around a lot of cattle trailers and livestock trailers hauling animals to market. Because for the most part, we lived in the city or in, one of the suburbs. So I didn't really see that. But when I got here, and first off, the first time I really noticed it was after I was with Rick and living on his farm. And then I would notice it more often, and I would see it traffic. You're sitting there looking over and you see this cow looking at you, or pigs looking through these holes in these trailers. And I realized the reason it was bothering me so much is that I knew how they felt, because I had been there. I had, being in an abusive relationship, when you're terrified for your life, I know that I would be in a vehicle and stopped at a light and looking at people, just hoping that somebody is going to be able to look into my eyes and read my mind, that I need help. I need someone to help me. And when you see that in an animal's eyes, if you've been there, you know what that feels like, and you know what it's all about, and you can't deny it, and you can't just stand by and let it happen.
You absolutely cannot. And I know that helpless feeling you're talking about. Where we live in Ohio, often we'll see trailers full of cows and pigs all over the place. And it's difficult. You see their eyes and the sadness in their eyes begging for help.
Yes. And
it's heartbreaking. So at what point do things start to change for you and Rick, in that, currently, he's raising animals to send them to slaughter. He's raising them for the profit, because that's what he was raised to do, and that's what he's continuing to do. So what was it that started to change that perspective for you and for Rick, that really, like, that first turning point, like, holy crap?
Well, thankfully it was in there all along for Rick.
Yeah.
So I just had to pray on that. And little by little, more and more cows were staying. Someone would have a calf and that one's not going, or someone would get old, and rather than, okay, before it gets down, which his father believed in, and most ranchers and farmers do, it's better to get it in the trailer before you have to drag it into the trailer.
Right.
So that stopped. That's not going to happen anymore. These girls have given you 10, 12 babies, no more. And he was already there, but hearing me nag about it, probably, okay, fine. So that stopped happening. And then, more and more babies wound up staying with their moms, and everyone, was acknowledged as special. And Rick and I, in the meantime, in 2012, 2013, we split up. But we care about one another deeply, and my pig Toby, it was his kid. So I built a house on the family farm. So Rick lives on one side of the street, and I live on the other side of the road, and it works out really well. So Rick would stop over every morning and visit Toby, and right before it was probably 2017, and Rick came in, and one of the calves that had been in the barn that he put in there the night before to take to market nearby, he had gone to load him up, and he couldn't do it. The little guy came over and sort of, nuzzled up to him a little bit, because they put him in the barn the day before, the night before, or even 2 days before. And, it's just, the babies cry all night. The moms cry all night. It's the saddest thing. And, they've been able to turn it off in their heads. I couldn't turn it off in my head. I never could. So it was like torment for the entire time for 10 years. So, Rick stopped by one day, and he's like, the little guy nuzzled up to me. I can't do it anymore. I don't know what to do, but I can't do it anymore. And I said, well, if you'll do this, you've got to donate them to me. I can't buy them. I'm not going to buy them. But
Right.
if you donate them, then I'll file for 501c3, and I'll start a sanctuary, and I'll protect them. And he agreed. I was shocked, but he agreed. And so that's how it started. So I began filing, and nobody else left. And, I couldn't until they were officially under sanctuary care, and it was a 501c3. I had him wait to donate them until then, but he wasn't taking any away. And then when it became official, I took all of the males, and we had, he probably had, there were a couple 3 and 4 year old service bulls that were here solely to breed. And one of them happened to be the little guy that nuzzled up to him in the barn and got to stay. And he'd grown up and become a breeding bull. So, they were taken to UT to be castrated. So babies would stop and no more breeding going on. I think there were around 40 at the time. By the time everybody wound up getting pregnant for one last time. I think everybody that could did. We have 54. We have 54 now. That'll be here forever. And the youngest one's 10 months old. The oldest one is 22 years old. And they'll be here forever. So, that's where we are now, is caring for these guys and trying to turn a cattle farm into a sanctuary where, we've got shelter for everyone and plenty of food for everyone. When they kept cattle, I don't think they kept any more than maybe 30. And we now have 54. So there are almost twice as many to feed. It's
Could be tough.
the job.
So obviously, my wife and I, Becky, we have a couple of our favorites. So the first time we were there, we really fell in love with Miley. And this little girl, she is a golden, like tan colored calf who literally, she put her head right in my lap. And she was just happy as can be. And then she was laying next to Becky, and she put her big hoof right on Becky's leg, kind of like, you're mine now. You're staying here. And, I'm good with Becky having Miley. But without a doubt, I think the last time we were in town, I formed quite a connection with the mayor.
Yes.
And, man, he is such a big, handsome boy. And, when I was leaning up against him, and, my son was like, hey, can I sit there with you? I'm like, sure. And I said, I'll get up. You come sit here, and, we'll just trade spots. And the mayor wrapped his big, massive head around me as if to say thank you or stay a little longer. And just, it's moments like that when people have the chance to connect with these animals, which is what changed my life. When you actually see them for what they are, that they are a sentient being, that they are a creature that feels and loves and enjoys life, they want to be with their herd, they want to be fed, they want to be safe, they want shelter, just like we do. When you start realizing that, you start looking at that compared to typical domesticated animals, dogs, cats, that people love and, spoil rotten. You realize that there's no difference. And that's why, I refer to cows as grass puppies. They are absolutely just giant grass puppies. And, they want a lot of the same things. Yes, they're bigger. Yes, they look different. Yes, they make different noises, but they want that attention, and they want that, emotional connection just like your dog does. And, I appreciate what you and Rick are doing. I love how much I could listen to him talk all day long, talking about his transformation.
Yeah. Do you want to hear him? He's hanging out over the hill. Do you want him to come up and say hi?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Okay, hang on. Hey, Rick. Yeah, everybody should hear Rick talk.
Absolutely. One of the things that I love about you too is that, how tall is Rick?
6'4".
And how tall is Randie?
Right under 5 feet.
There he is.
Hey,
Rick, how you doing tonight, man?
pretty good, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing quite well. I appreciate it. So we were talking to Randie, and she was sharing a little bit about your all story and what you guys have going on there. So I figured since we were talking about you, we may as well say hey and put a name to a face for those who don't know you.
Okay.
So you spent a little time with the cows this evening?
Oh, yeah. I always come in, do my evening feeding and check them all and pump the water and make sure all of them's okay and everything. And got to give them a nightly loving.
I think you benefit from that as well. And, it's such a peaceful place there that you guys have. And I love seeing you two work together, and, how you care for these animals and how you transition from the way you were raised into the way you love these animals, and your compassion for them today is just absolutely remarkable. And I think other men need to be able to look at what is possible and to, see that just because you were raised a certain way doesn't mean that's the way you have to, the path you have to continue the rest of your life.
That's exactly right. That's true. And that's probably one of the best things I've done going over to this. And they've got a forever home here, so no worries whatsoever.
That is incredible, and I appreciate all the work that you guys do, because, sanctuary work can be very rewarding, but it can also be very difficult. I know last year you guys had, a time when it was nothing but rain, and you guys had a mama who was down, and things were not good. But yet you guys did what you had to do to take care of her, to take care of their babies, and I applaud you and Randie for what you guys do, and I just, appreciate you guys as incredible human beings trying to share this with as many people who will listen.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, the cow, when she was down for 11 days, and we carried water back and forth and made temporary shelters to keep her dry and as warm as possible. And we managed to get her to the barn one afternoon, and she stayed there 2 or 3 days, and she just got up one Saturday morning. And she's a fighter, and she's out here with the herd right now.
That's, any other place she wouldn't have had that opportunity to be taken care of and to be rehabbed, so to speak. She wouldn't have had that opportunity to rebound and rejoin her herd. She would have been sent to slaughter.
Oh, definitely she would, but she's here now with some of her children and grandchildren and all, so they're all just one big happy herd.
That is awesome. I can't wait till the next time we get to come down and see you guys. And, it's like every time we're there, it's like you don't want to leave. And every time you get to, it's so funny because, you're a big guy. You're Randy said 6'4".
Right.
So it's funny. You're walking out in a pasture full of cows and you see a big gentleman, Rick, laying out with any of these cows that are laid down with him, and just, they adore you and they appreciate it. I firmly believe that they know what you guys have done for them, and I think they really appreciate that. And I know that I do, and I'm sure everyone else watching does as well.
Well, I appreciate that comment, and I do. I think they know what I did for them, and they trust me, and they really do. I guess you'd say love me, and I love them just as much. And
yeah,
to me, that is not a better feeling than get out and mingle with them. And some people fish, some people golf. For a hobby, this is mine, and I love it, and I wouldn't change it for nothing.
That is a great hobby, and I appreciate you guys sharing that with as many people as you can. So, Rick, I really appreciate you stopping in and saying, hey, I appreciate what you guys do. And, if we could get more men to realize that, compassion for these animals is masculine, compassion is manly, and there ain't nothing wrong with snuggling up with a big old cow.
No, there's not. There's not. And, you'll never know what it's like till you try it. And
I think for a lot of people, if they could do that and to make that connection with these amazing creatures, I think it would really open their eyes and allow them to see things differently. My dad in particular, he said, I don't ever see myself laying down with a cow. But I tell you what, it might have to happen. I've had some really good conversations with him here recently, and I think things are starting to affect him, the things that I've been sharing, and that would be huge for me at some point if I can get him to lay down with the cow.
Oh, yeah, you've been here before, and you know how they are. You just go out in the field, and they all just come up like a bunch of dogs or whatever, and they just keep petted and loved on. There's no difference.
And that's absolutely incredible, and we would like to take advantage of that every chance we get. So, Randie, what else you guys got going on right now?
Well, we got this going on right now.
Oh my goodness.
That going on right now. Yeah, there's little Lou.
Little Louie. So, why don't you tell where Louie's story began?
Well, Louie was one of the last to be born here. He was born to a first-time mom, and it was a really nasty, rainy, cold day, late in December.
Yeah.
And, his mom went into labor, and she was in labor all day long. And it was raining, it was icy, and Rick kept calling me, telling me that she's in labor, she hasn't had him yet, but he could see his nose, he could see his hooves. So by the time I got home from work, there were vets here, and it took 2 of them to finally pull Lou out of his mama, and dropped him down into a mud puddle, and their focus changed to taking care of the mom and keeping her alive. And Rick happened to notice that Lou blinked his eyes. So picked him up and put him in with his mom. But I think he had just gone through so much trauma, and it was so cold that, he couldn't nurse. I wasn't even sure he could see. he just was in really rough shape, and he wasn't going to live because he wasn't going to be able to nurse from his mom. So Rick carried him up here to my house and onto the kitchen floor where he slept most of the first night. And then he moved into my hallway, and he was deemed what was called a dummy calf. And his tongue hung out. He couldn't take a bottle. He just, there was just everything that could be wrong with him seemed to be wrong with him. It's like there was nothing behind his eyes. It was like he just wasn't in the world. So for about 2.5 weeks, we tube fed him, and finally he snapped out of it and became like a real little calf. He was running and jumping and playing. We'd take him outside and he could run around outside. He just suddenly he was fine. But he still couldn't drink. He still couldn't nurse. That mechanism just didn't work for him. So another 5.5 weeks, we continued to tube feed him, and got to a point where, that big tongue that lolled out, he would just fight it, and then he would pull the tube back out and it would spray all over the walls. And it was just a disaster for a long time. And didn't know what we were going to do. We tried all sorts of goat milk and cow's milk and whole milk and everything. We just couldn't get him to take anything. And just as an act of desperation, I bought silk milk, soy milk, and put it in a bowl, and he just dove in, and our little vegan calf was good to go. And, I probably, if I put it on the floor, he would drink it today. But I do believe it saved his life, because he was getting to a point where he was sick of being tube fed. He wasn't going to do it anymore.
Sure.
And so, he'd get up every morning and have his soy milk. We're hoping that sometime soon we can build a barn as soon as we have some good plans to build a barn. We've got the funds, thanks to everyone who has supported us and has answered the call to our fundraiser for a home for Lou, because he needs to move out of my garage. He's got a nice barn in my garage, but he really needs to take his comic books and shove off.
It's time he grows up and gets out. I think what we ought to do is I am going to share that portion of that story. I think you should have a barn sponsored by Silk. Like, my God, even a cow knows you should be drinking it.
No kidding. It saved this little guy. It should. And I'll post that picture again of because you not only fed him the milk, you had to put the carton down beside him so he knew that you weren't like messing with him. So, and he would drink, and then he would go touch the carton, and then he would drink and he'd touch the carton. So you couldn't get away with pulling anything over on him. It had to be silk milk.
He's clearly a very smart boy.
He is, and he can read. So it was really cool. So he went from being what they called a dummy calf to a genius.
Clearly. I mean, if we could get other people to wake up just like that, we'd be in a much better place. So
we would be. So he's doing really well now, but as you saw the last time, and he's bigger than the last time you were here.
Oh yeah.
He's getting big. He's still living in the garage and being a baby here because he had an umbilical hernia, and that had to be operated on. So after that, he had to be, like, for 4 months, he had to be kept in the he didn't have to be kept in the house, but he had to be kept away from anything that could hurt him or ram him. Just no cow play.
Yeah.
Have him do anything that was what cows did. So so 4 months are up now. It happened in July. So we've been introducing him to Augie Minnie, you know them. So he's gone to visit them a couple times, and Augie's so big and lazy that, he just doesn't offer a whole lot of competition, but Minnie is, a little frisky. So she lined up to just the first thing, just headbutt him right in the belly. So we had to get him out of there. So we don't know how that's going to go.
Okay. Well, I'm sure I'm speaking for everyone that we really appreciate all your guys' efforts and to make sure that you did everything you could do to save his life, and the irony involved in that it was silk.
Yeah,
That,
I know. It's
did the
so
trick. That's I'm serious. I am going to, if you'll send me that picture again, I will post that on mine as well, and I will try to get Silk's attention, because that in itself could be one hell of a marketing campaign.
It
So.
could. We will plaster their logo on absolutely every part of it.
Why not? I mean, that saved Louis' life. So
It did.
Uh,
Sure did.
Randie, I really appreciate you coming on here tonight and sharing your story and sharing your passion and your love for these incredible animals that you share with the world. I am very fortunate. So we met kind of by happenstance, because I work in IT, and you have a friend that we have in common, Mindy. Mindy reached out to you because you needed a little technical assistance, and that's kind of how we got connected. And of course, I was willing to jump in and help with what little knowledge I have about websites, but we got things up and going a little bit. And I am so glad that Mindy connected the two of us, and that Becky and I were able to come down and bring our boys. And maybe next spring, maybe I'll be bringing my dad down so he can lay down with his cows in the field.
Yeah, so he can lay with a cow.
I would love to see that. So
Yeah, you don't get over it.
no, you sure don't, especially when you see a grown man snuggled up with a cow. And the cows love it just as much as us grown men do. So
Yeah, they do. That's obvious.
yes, it is. So thank you and Rick very much for all that you guys do. I really, really appreciate what you do. And, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to include you guys on Project 41.
We appreciate it.
You are very welcome. Hopefully we can send some more support your way and do some good for y'all.
We so appreciate it, and we appreciate everything you do. We need more like you, Chris, and thank you for your support. Thank you for visiting us. Thank you for loving the cows and all animals, and we love you guys a lot.
We appreciate it.
To us.
We love you guys too, and just absolutely incredible to, when you meet people that you connect with, and on a genuine level of love and care for each other and for these animals, and such an important thing to be championing for these animals. So I appreciate all you guys do, Randie.
You are welcome. You're welcome.
If you guys need anything between now and then, give me a shout.
Okay.
Thanks, Randie.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
See ya.
So that's, my goodness. So, I could talk to Randie and Rick all night. I love hearing these stories. I love, Rick's story that he used to always, he used to get upset when he would drop the cows off at slaughter, because he knew deep down inside there was something that this wasn't right. And the fact that this man, this 6'4" big old Tennessee country boy, knew that something was not right, that speaks volumes. And I appreciate what they do, and I appreciate that they are trying to share all of this with the world. So I would encourage all of you to check out the Cows Come Home Sanctuary if you haven't already. You can check them out on Facebook, on Instagram, and start following them. They'll start showing and sharing some of these pictures and some of these stories that they have. And I tell you what, it's one of those places when you go visit, it is just so calm and relaxing. These cows, it's like they've been waiting for you to come all day. It's like they've been waiting for you to come sit with them. It's like they've been waiting for you to come and just enjoy some peace and quiet with them. So hats off to Rick and Randie. Thank you guys very much for all that you do. Becky and I really appreciate it. We love and cherish you guys' friendship. And if you guys need anything, let us know. If you guys would, Randie and the other 3 sanctuaries, the For Them Sanctuary, the Big Island Sanctuary, and Love Always, they can't do these things. They can't rescue these animals without our support. They can't do these things without donations. Comments, likes, and shares are very important, but unfortunately what they need donations. They need to be able to feed their babies. They need to be able to provide them with vet care, and they need to be able to provide them proper shelter. So I would appreciate anyone who wants to check out my birthday fundraiser, which is located at gofundme.com/project41. I appreciate all the support and donations so far. And what's really cool is on December 3rd, I'm going to donate to all 4 of these locations. Every penny that gets donated is going to be split up amongst these 4 incredible individuals. And what's really neat is all eligible organizations will receive a matching donation from Facebook. So if I'm able to get to my goal of $2,000, I'll be able to make a donation of $500 to each of these locations, and Facebook is going to match that. So that's my goal, and I can't do this without you guys. I appreciate all the support. I know that these organizations do as well. So throughout the rest of this series, I'm going to get Paula Buck on from Big Island Sanctuary. I'll see if Nikki's got time in her busy schedule from Love Always. And Leslie, God bless Leslie. Leslie is probably one of the busiest women I know. And my wife and I, we have 7 kids. So talk about busy. Leslie is an amazing woman who is always fighting for these animals. She runs a vegan cafe, a sanctuary vegan cafe. She runs for them sanctuary, and she's always knee deep in elbows in everything she's got going on. So I will see if I can squeeze some time out of her busy schedule as well. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to Randie and Rick share a little bit of their story. And if you guys would, make sure you go out and follow the Cows Come Home Sanctuary. You guys have a good one. I'm out.